Hi, have you ever tried to master something and then maybe a few years after you've got to where you want to be, maybe you're at an intermediate level or you've actually mastered the thing you're trying to do. You look back and you see some mistakes and you think to yourself, if I hadn't made that, I could have shaved months, maybe even years off my learning curve and got to where I wanted to be a heck of a lot quicker. And that's kind of painful because obviously you could have been making money faster, you could have been helping people faster, and we've all only got a limited number of years, so you would have had more time with this skill. And this is the thing that bugs me over and over is I could have been a better copywriter faster, probably I'd say 3 to 5 years faster. It was about 9 years ago probably I decided I wanted to write copy. And I took my study really seriously. I was probably reading, I'd say, a book every 4 or 5 days, and I was doing this every single week for probably 2 or 3 years. And so I was studying everything. I was studying social media, SEO, general advertising, even the newer general advertising. So literally, if it was to do with advertising or copywriting, I'd lay my hands on it and I'd have read it. And if you name a book, I've probably got it back home in England on my bookshelf. Literally, I've got a bookshelf full, top to bottom, with advertising books. But this actually, I've come to realise, and I've only realised this probably in the past couple of years or so, was probably the biggest mistake I made as a rookie. And I would hate for somebody starting out to make the same mistake, because what it did really was it sent me down a lot of rabbit holes. Sent me in a lot of different directions, and I'm naturally somebody who tends to overcomplicate simple matters as it is, so it was particularly bad for me. Running all over the place, no real solid foundation of knowledge. Now, of course, I'd read the books at the bottom, what I call like the solid foundation of direct response knowledge that you really have to drill into your brain. I'd of course read these books, but it was flimsy, if you know what I mean. I'd read these books, but I maybe read them once or twice. So I had this, I knew about it, I read it, yeah, get that. But I hadn't really drilled it into my head. Like I hadn't read these books 10 times, which is what I suggest you do. I hadn't really built this solid structure, this foundation of direct response knowledge and direct response copywriting knowledge. I hadn't had this solid foundation, and that's what I would do. That's what I would recommend to a rookie, or if maybe you're a client looking to hire a copywriter, get this foundation down, and then you're going to be able to make better decisions for the rest of your time. So this foundation, I'm going to get to the books in a minute, because what I actually suggest is you only read 3 books, and I'm going to give you the books, and I'm actually even going to give you one of the books for free because it's in the public domain. But that's not so important what the books are. What matters is that you study these books hard. So if you are a rookie copywriter, you want to get better at copy, I suggest reading these books 10 times. So read the first one, read the second one, read the third one, and do it over and over 10 times. And then once you've done that, I suggest reading them each once a year to keep yourself topped up. What that's going to do is it's going to give you a nice grounding of direct response know-how, direct response copy knowledge, so that when you learn these other things, when you start experimenting with different ideas like maybe social media, native advertising, like advertorial type things online, anything new, like SEO, anything new is going to be built on this structure of proven, tested principles that we've known have worked for over 100 years. And so everything you learn, you're going to be able to critique it better. You're not just going to jump for every guru that you see. You're going to be more effective in applying the knowledge because you'll apply it with this direct response knowledge drilled into your brain. Okay, so what I'm going to do is get right to it. It's 3 books. I actually came up with the idea for this because I had my bookshelf back home, like I say, in England. Then I got married and I moved to Canada. And it was like, well, I can only bring so many books. So which should I bring? And obviously I brought the ones which seemed most important. And then having obviously reading them, studying them with a few other books back here in Canada, I found that actually my skills as a copywriter have improved. And I'm always looking to improve, always. And I know I can still improve a good deal. And so I'm always studying these and always looking for new ways to do better. And just studying these has made me far, far better than studying the piles and piles of books I have back home. So I've got better through reading less, basically. Okay, so the first book I recommend is Tested Advertising Methods by John Caples. If you can get an earlier edition of this, I recommend it. This is the 5th edition. I can't find an earlier edition. I've looked, but if you can, get it. Because this one's been edited by or revised by a guy called Freddie Hum. And some of his edits are fine, but he's got a number of adverts in here which I don't think are very good. I'll try and pull an example for you, because there are quite a few. Yeah, here's one. So I got one here, it just says, "Say what you will, she runs a hell of a hotel." So I'm pretty sure that's an advert he's inserted. And for me, it's not a very good ad. So you've got to be aware of that if you do get this edition. This is probably going to be the edition you're going to end up with. I'm not knocking this Freddie Hahn. He's done some good edits, but he's inserted some ads which don't seem that good to me, and so you need to be a little bit aware of which ads are good and which are bad. But still, the most important book, I'd say, because John Caples, I should talk a bit about him, was one of the first people in general advertising to relentlessly test advertisements, were back in the days when they would use coupons. And so he found out, he was one of the pioneers in general advertising to really find out what works and what doesn't. And this book was actually the foundation of David Ogilvy's knowledge. This was what David Ogilvy said was probably the most important book he read. And he obviously went to build a great multi-billion-dollar organization. So yeah, very important book. Get that and read it 10 times. The next book, now I'm going to admit I haven't read this in a while, so I'm going to actually be revising this again soon, but How to Write a Good Advertisement, and this is by a man called Victor Schwab. The two standout, like I say, it has been a while for me, this, unfortunately, but the two standout bits of this book is first the 100 Greatest Headlines. He's got 100 headlines in this book, which are all proven to convert. And I actually suggest you write out these headlines by hand, because that'll sort of, again, drill these principles into your brain. And it's really useful to study these, because you'll also notice when you look at other people who know what they're doing, you'll see similarities here and there in the headlines. And so you're always going to be critiquing this in the back of your brain. It's going to be a really fast way to learn. The other good thing in this book is he talks about appealing to different emotions. So he'll maybe take pride as an example, and then he'll write a paragraph about appealing to pride, possibly with examples. Like I say, I'm going to be reading this again soon, studying it with notes. Really important to always reread books, because you always pick up more as you go along and you make that foundation stronger. The third book I don't actually have a hard copy of. It's called Scientific Advertising by Claude Hopkins, which is probably one of the most important books, and it's only about 50 pages. So if you think, oh, reading it 10 times, that's going to be a lot of work, that's going to take me a little too long. Well, Claude Hopkins, his book is only about 50 pages, and so you can blitz through that. It takes about an hour or so. And by the way, I don't suggest stalling on anything you're trying to do while you read these books. It's, if you need to maybe work as a freelance copywriter, maybe you want to work in an agency, or maybe you're hiring a copywriter, you're a client, I suggest pressing on doing that, but just be reading these books in the meantime. And so Claude Hopkins' Scientific Advertising, that's very much it's very much the grounding of what direct response copywriters and direct marketers sort of use as their grounding knowledge of what works, what doesn't. It's about 100 years old, and it's got a lot of good stuff on, particularly on offers and guarantees and incentives and such. Stuff that you really need to study over and over again to keep in mind. The great thing about that book is it's free and you can grab it right now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the description below, so look for that and grab it. It's yours. Also, if you're not on my list, you should check the link. I've got a link for my email ideas PDFs, which if you have an email list or maybe a blog and you often get stuck for ideas, that's a simple 2-step exercise you can download, and it'll keep the ideas flooding in. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, you can reach me through my website. It's alexbusson.com, and I wish you well and Merry Christmas.